Welcome back. I'm Kim Bailey. She's Fulyana Osborne, and this is Inside Exec. We're continuing our discussion on the Forbes list of the top management issues for 2023. This is part 2 of that discussion. Next one is accelerated digital transformation. I suppose that's a bit of a crossover from what we've just talked about, but it's also about being aware that the digital side of your business needs to be quick. And it needs to be right, and you need to test it. I cannot say this often enough. Test it as though you were the user. Have a look at it, not just on your computer screen. Have a look at what it looks like on your phone. Is it as easy to move around your website on the phone or on a tablet as it is when you're sitting in front of the computer? Because increasingly, and you can get these statistics from any of the service providers that you use for your website, it will tell you how many people in a month, percentage-wise, use a phone to access your website, use a phone to access your services. The other thing I will plead with you to do is not force people to use an app, because not everyone wants to have an app on their phone. Not everyone wants to have that limited experience that apps do. The app is not always the answer. So don't think that that's the best way for you to accelerate your digital transformation. It's not just having an app. It's having something in the digital world that works for your consumers or your customers. I was going to do a combined word there, but I stopped myself. Do you have something to tell us on digital transformation?
Not on digital transformation per se, but on technology and how, looking back a bit, technology will take away jobs, etc. But I'm not the expert on technology, never have been, never will be. But what I do know is how fantastic it is, how advanced and fast advancing is technology. So it will help us in areas. For example, we know on the medical side, we've got shortages and the labs get so busy and all of that, and you have to wait for results and whatnot. So I was very excited when I heard at the new technology expo they had, and that there's one called the Smart Toilet. And the Smart Toilet is more about really, it's something that they use in the lab. You put it in your toilet and it gives you some results of urine tests. So to me, I guess you could laugh about it and say, we're all going to turn into, our own. However, wouldn't that help, that sort of idea? Wouldn't that help? It's the same as when the COVID testing and you could do your rat test. Yeah. I'm in awe of the speed in which things have happened, and therefore it allows us to get people to utilise, in a business sense, to utilise less resources, but use technology to help it. And you retrain your resources. You need different mix of resources rather than less, as we always, we're scared of technology because it takes away jobs. It doesn't. It just recreate other things, and it's exciting.
The next one is the future skills that are required, as well as the skills gap that is currently available. We'll probably just touch on this briefly because it's worthy of a separate podcast altogether. And I think we've got some guests coming up after this podcast that will be able to talk to it from a global viewpoint as well. So that will be interesting too. But if we look at those two areas, obviously at the moment we are dealing with a skills gap, a lack of skills almost, and there are all sorts of government initiatives to address that. But my concern is that, are they looking at the skills we need now, or are they looking at the future skills that will be needed? And this is, again, as Forbes is saying, is a management issue about looking at your organisation, looking at where you're headed, what you think you'll be producing or doing in the next 5 or 10 years, and what sort of skills you need for that, and whether you need them internally or externally, and whether they're available. And often in the technology space, the greatest innovations have come from people saying, we want to do this particular thing. There is no technology at the moment that can do it. We don't know how it will be done, but that's what we want to do. And so they're looking to the future without knowing now how they'll do it. So I would encourage you in your organisations to think that way as well. Think about what you would like to be doing, what you think you should be doing. in 5 years' time, even if there's no way you can see that you could be doing it now, and look at what skills are needed. Start with the skills that are needed, not the process. Start with the skills that would be needed for that activity or that service and work your way back.
Question about now and in the future, we need both, right? And then we've got a problem that can also be a solution. For example, we know that Australia is an ageing population, so we need to bring migration in, etc., etc. But we also know that the topic that I can't speak to, which is inflation and economic downturn, what it means to me is that we're going to need more money. We're all going to be, poor in that sense. So when you look at the ageing population, I see it as a huge opportunity because they experienced, right? They want to come back to work because they want more money because they know that whatever they've got is getting eroded by that situation, and therefore they can be the now and helping build the future. So I would say there is an opportunity, even though it is an issue from a country perspective. The other thing is it's also, we won't go into detail about it this time, but the apprenticeship side of things. Who best is to, again, educate and train people is the people who've done it for many years and done it well as the theory side, of course. So, yeah.
And it's the terminology too. We still use the apprentice term, which has probably been used for 500 years.
Yes.
And we only refer to it in terms of trades.
When I say apprentice, I mean in every walk of life, whether it is... But you're right, most people think apprentice are blue-collar trades. Yeah.
Next one is data and device security. Now, we did do a podcast on this a couple of years ago, I think, and that hasn't changed. It's still vitally important. Yeah. And I think that we will do another one in the future. We're all very aware of the data breaches that have happened around the world, and we'll continue to do so because we're looking at that accelerated digital transformation, which is also an issue. So as a management issue for the coming year, data and device security is obviously going to be high on your list, and that brings in the dilemma of the demographic of people who are making the decisions about how that should be managed, and the people who can the demographic of the people who can actually provide those services. So we need to look at that in a separate podcast and look at what your options might be, and we'll see if we can find an expert that can lead us through that, because neither of us are particularly well versed in that area. And the last one is sustainability, and I think that's probably the one that will get the most popular press coverage, and it's the one that almost organisations can give lip service to without actually looking at what it really means. And so we might also again have that as a separate topic and look at how you can be sustainable in terms of your people, as well as your product or your service or anything else that might add or contribute to the work that you're doing or the things that the organisation does. So that's the list from Forbes. It's supply chain reliability, inflation and economic downturn, increased customer expectations, accelerated digital transformation, future skills and the skills gap, data and device security, and sustainability. So as I said, we'll put the link to the article at the bottom, and we will have some other podcasts throughout 2023 that look at some of those areas very specifically. But for now, I'm Kim Bailey, she's Fulyana Osborne, and this is Inside Exec.